golden light of late afternoon spills across the quiet town of Millfield, painting the streets in warm hues of amber and gold. It's the kind of peaceful, unremarkable day that fades into memory, except for what happens next. James Carter, a well-liked high school science teacher, walks home along his usual route, a shortcut through the wide open field behind Oak Ridge Lane. The grass sways gently in the breeze, and the air carries the faint scent of freshly cut lawns. He's a familiar sight here. Neighbors nod to him as he passes, and a few kids playing nearby call out greetings. James smiles, adjusts his glasses, and waves back. One of those children, a boy named Tommy, is tossing a rubber ball against the side of his house. The rhythmic thump, thump, thump fills the air as James strides across the field. Tommy glances up just as James reaches the center of the empty stretch of land. No trees, no ditches, nothing but flat earth underfoot. Then, in the span of a breath, it happens. Tommy's ball bounces too far, rolling into the street. He turns away for no more than 3 seconds, just long enough to chase after it. When he looks back, James is gone. Not walking away, not collapsed on the ground. Simply not there. The field is empty. Only James's hat remains, drifting lazily to the grass as if he had evaporated mid-step. The birds, which had been chirping moments before, have gone silent. And just like that, an ordinary day becomes the beginning of an unsolvable mystery. The camera pans across a sleepy Midwestern town at golden hour, where the setting sun casts long shadows across manicured lawns and freshly painted picket fences. We settle on James Carter, a 42-year-old physics teacher in a slightly rumpled corduroy jacket, walking home with a worn leather briefcase swinging at his side. The scene breathes with mundane details, the squeak of his left shoe needing oil, the way he absently adjusts his wire-frame glasses as he walks, the faint jingle of keys in his pocket, keeping rhythm with his steps. As James crosses the empty soccer field behind Maple Street Elementary, director Wes Anderson's style symmetry frames him perfectly centered in the vast green space. The establishing shot holds just long enough for viewers to memorize every detail: the lone dandelion growing near third base, the distant sound of a lawnmower, the way his shadow stretches 20 feet behind him. A flock of starlings suddenly takes flight from the nearby bleachers, their synchronized movement briefly drawing James's gaze upward. The camera switches to a child's perspective as 8-year-old Tommy Henderson chases a red rubber ball across the adjacent parking lot. Through Tommy's eyes, we see James raise a hand in greeting just as the ball bounces wildly toward the storm drain. The sequence plays out with agonizing normalcy. Tommy scrambling after the ball, James taking 3 more steps, his right foot, left foot, right foot. A delivery truck momentarily blocking view as it passes on the street. When Tommy retrieves his ball and looks back, the wide shot reveals the impossible. James is gone, but his briefcase hangs suspended in midair for a full second before crashing to the ground. The hat floating downward is caught in slow motion, rotating lazily like a falling leaf. All ambient noise cuts out except for the distorted stretching of the hat's fabric as it settles on the grass. From a high angle, we see the entire field now. No hiding places, no disturbances in the grass, just Tommy standing frozen with his ball as the first evening shadows creep across the perfect green expanse. The scene holds for 3 full beats before the distant sound of a screen door slamming breaks the spell and the world rushes back in with overwhelming clarity. The air itself seems to hold its breath as James Carter takes his final steps. The camera lingers on the empty field, wide and exposed under the afternoon sun. There are no shadows deep enough to hide in, no sudden dips in the earth, just an unbroken stretch of grass swaying in the breeze. James walks with the easy rhythm of a man who's taken this path 1,000 times before. His shoes scuff against the dry soil, leaving faint impressions that stop abruptly, as if erased. Then, a flicker. A distortion in the air, like heat rising off pavement in summer. For half a second, the edges of James's silhouette seem to waver, his outline bleeding into the sunlight. His hand, still raised mid-wave, becomes translucent. The fabric of his jacket ripples unnaturally, not from wind, but as if reality itself is unraveling around him. Tommy, the boy chasing his ball, turns just in time to see it happen. James doesn't scream, doesn't stumble. He simply isn't. One moment, he's there. Solid. Real. The next, the space he occupied is empty. His hat, caught in the split second between existence and absence, floats downward in eerie slow motion, spinning like a leaf in still air. His briefcase hits the ground with a thud, its latch bursting open, papers scattering. Silence follows. Not the quiet of an empty field, but something deeper. An unnatural hush, as if the world itself has paused to register the violation. The birds that had been chirping seconds earlier have gone mute. Even the distant hum of traffic has vanished. Tommy stands frozen, his fingers tightening around the rubber ball. His breath comes quick and shallow, his young mind scrambling to process what his eyes refuse to believe. Where did he go? The question hangs in the air, unanswered. Then, as if waking from a trance, the world rushes back in. A car honks somewhere down the street. A dog barks. The breeze picks up again. But James Carter is still gone, and no one can explain why. The golden light of late afternoon takes on an almost liquid quality as James Carter reaches the exact center of the field. The camera tracks his movement in a continuous Steadicam shot, his shadow stretching long behind him. As his left foot lands on a particular patch of earth, we'll later notice this is the only spot where the grass grows in a perfect circle. The air begins to vibrate with an almost subsonic hum. From Tommy's perspective, we see James suddenly snap into razor-sharp focus, while the background behind him blurs slightly, as if reality is struggling to maintain resolution. The teacher's outline develops a faint corona effect, like old film burning at the edges. His next step causes ripples in the air, not heat distortion, but something more fundamental, as if space itself has become viscous. When Tommy blinks, the afterimage of James lingers for a fraction too long on his retina. The man's mouth is moving, but no sound emerges. Not even the ambient noise of the neighborhood penetrates this growing bubble of wrongness. A single sheet of paper escapes James's briefcase and hangs suspended midair, its edges fluttering in some unfelt breeze. The police station hums with fluorescent lights and the low murmur of hushed conversations. Detective Sarah Reyes sits across from Tommy Henderson, now a 32-year-old man with haunted eyes that still look too young for his age. The tape recorder between them clicks softly as it spins, capturing every word, every hesitation. Tommy's hands tremble slightly around a styrofoam cup of coffee gone cold. He hasn't touched it. "I was 8, he begins, voice steady but hollow. "The ball rolled into the street. I turned for 3 seconds, maybe less. When I looked back," a pause. The air in the room thickens. Detective Reyes waits. She's heard the story before, from the original report, from Tommy's parents, from the teachers who searched the field that evening, but she needs to hear it from him again. Tommy's gaze drifts to the window, where rain streaks the glass like slow-moving fingers. He didn't scream, didn't fall. There was no sound at all, just empty space where he'd been standing. His fingers tapped the table once, twice, a nervous rhythm. His hat floated down, like it was caught in a draft, but there was no wind. Detective Reyes leans forward. And the briefcase? Tommy's breath hitches. It hit the ground a second later, like whatever took him didn't want his things. The tape recorder whirs, then quieter. I think he saw it coming. Reyes stiffens. What do you mean? Tommy's eyes flicker with something unreadable. Right before he vanished, he looked up, not at the sky, at something above the sky, and he smiled. A beat of silence. No one believed me then, Tommy murmurs. But you're asking now, which means you've seen it too. The detective doesn't answer. The tape recorder clicks off. Detective Reyes' desk is a landscape of organized chaos, case files stacked in uneven towers, a half-empty coffee cup staining a manila folder, and a single black-and-white photograph pinned beneath a flickering desk lamp. The image shows the field where James Carter vanished, the grass unnaturally flattened in a perfect circle. She's been here all night. Again. The precinct is quiet at this hour. The only sounds the hum of the vending machine down the hall and the occasional rustle of paper as Reyes flips through the original 1974 police report. The pages are yellowed at the edges, the typewriter ink slightly faded. She traces a finger over the coroner's note, no bodily remains recovered, and exhales through her nose. Across from her, Officer Jenkins leans against the filing cabinet, arms crossed. You really think this is connected? Reyes doesn't look up. Same field, same MO, person walks in, doesn't walk out. She taps the file. Only difference is, this time, we have this. She slides a sealed evidence bag across the desk. Inside, a single Polaroid photo recovered from the pocket of the latest missing person, a college student who disappeared 3 days ago. The image shows the same stretch of grass, the same bleachers in the background, but in the center of the frame, barely visible, is a humanoid silhouette, its edges blurred like it's caught mid-movement. Jenkins squints. Is that James Carter? Reyes finishes. Maybe. Or something else. She stands abruptly, grabbing her coat. We're going back to the field. The fluorescent lights in the precinct's basement archives flicker like failing stars as Detective Reyes pulls the chain on an ancient banker's lamp. Dust motes swirl in the sudden glow, settling on a sprawling caseboard that dominates the back wall. Red yarn connects crime scene photos to timelines, witness statements to topographic maps of the field. At the center, an enlarged 8x10 photo of James Carter's hat lying abandoned in the grass, its shadow pointing at an angle that physics says is impossible for that time of day. Reyes' fingers hover over a police report dated October 17, 1942. The brittle pages describe a milkman who vanished along this same route. His horse-drawn wagon found standing untouched in the middle of the field, the horse dead, but still warm, its eyes rolled back in terror. She adds it to the board with a fresh red pin. The detective's coffee has gone cold 3 hours ago. The rings it left on documents form a perfect pattern, 7 concentric circles that match the strange grass growth patterns in the field. She doesn't notice. Her attention is locked on the newest piece of evidence, security footage from the college library where the missing student worked. The evidence room is colder than the rest of the precinct, a deliberate choice, Reyes suspects, to keep the unnatural things contained. The flickering bulb overhead casts jagged shadows across the metal table where she's laid out the artifacts. James Carter's hat, the Polaroid of the silhouette, the student's journal, and now the soldier's file from 1959. But it's the tape recorder that holds her attention. It's an old model, the kind with actual reels. It belonged to James. According to the original report, it was found in his home, still running, 3 days after he vanished. The tape inside had been blank, until last night, when Reyes played it back and heard the static. "Try it again," Jenkins says, arms crossed like he's bracing himself. At first, nothing. Then, a hiss, like air escaping a vacuum. The static builds, forming a rhythm almost like breathing. It's James, but not the calm, measured teacher everyone remembers. This voice is ragged, stretched thin with something between awe and terror. A pause, a sound like metal bending. Then, they're not disappearances, they're exchanges. The tape cuts off. Jenkins stares. What the hell does that mean? Reyes doesn't answer. She's too busy staring at the Polaroid. Because in the dim light, she swears the silhouette has moved, just slightly. The hum of the evidence locker's climate control system forms a dissonant chord with the buzzing fluorescent lights as Reyes carefully lays out the artifacts on the steel examination table. Each item rests in its own pool of light from the adjustable forensic lamps, creating islands of revelation in the otherwise dark room. James Carter's hat dominates the center space. 23 years after its recovery, the brown fedora shows no signs of aging, no fading, no dust accumulation, no insect damage. The most disturbing detail only becomes visible under UV light. A perfect handprint on the brim, glowing an eerie blue. The fingers are too long, the palm too narrow. It doesn't match James's records. Reyes loads the tape recorder with gloved hands. The device shows bizarre modifications no audio engineer can explain. The playback head has been replaced with what appears to be a sliver of human bone, and the interior wiring forms fractal patterns that make technicians nauseous if examined too long. The precinct's conference room feels more like a war room now. Detective Reyes stands before a wall covered in photographs, maps, and scribbled notes, each piece of evidence connected by red string that forms a spider web of desperation. The air is thick with the scent of stale coffee and the acrid tang of dry erase markers. Around the table, a handful of officers and one reluctant astrophysicist from the local university stare at the board like it's a live grenade. Dr. Lyle Chen, the astrophysicist, adjusts his glasses and exhales sharply. Okay, let's assume for a moment that we're not all insane. He points to the photo of the field. If this is a localized space-time anomaly, a door, as you call it, then the vanishings aren't random. They're targeted. Reyes crosses her arms. By what? Chen hesitates. Something that exists outside linear time. Think of it like a fisherman casting a net. But instead of fish, it's pulling people out of our timeline and replacing them with something else. He taps the Polaroid of the silhouette. That might not be James Carter. It might be whatever took his place. Across the table, Officer Garza scoffs. Or it's a hoax, a bunch of bored kids with Photoshop and too much time. Reyes doesn't blink. Then explain the tape. Silence. Jenkins, uncharacteristically quiet, finally speaks. What if it's not just this field? What if there are other doors? Reyes' gaze flicks to a map of the state, where 3 other unsolved disappearances are circled in red, all in open spaces, all with no witnesses, all with something left behind, a shoe, a ring, a whisper on a dead phone line. We're not dealing with a mystery, she says softly. We're dealing with a pattern, and patterns repeat. The precinct's largest conference room has become a cathedral of madness. Detective Reyes stands before a sprawling mosaic of evidence that now consumes 3 entire walls. Photographs, documents, and bizarre artifacts are pinned in chaotic harmony, connected by red yarn that forms intricate, almost ritualistic patterns. A portable UV light reveals hidden markings on several pieces, spiral symbols, equations that make mathematicians recoil, and what appears to be fragments of an unknown language. At the center of it all looms a massive topographic map of the county, with the field marked in pulsing red. Surrounding it are 7 other locations, each the site of a historic disappearance. When viewed from a distance, they form a perfect heptagon. Dr. Lyle Chen, the astrophysicist, paces like a caged animal. His usual academic composure has shattered. This isn't just an anomaly, it's a structure. He stabs a finger at the map. These points, they're vertices. The vanishings are happening at precise geometric intervals, following a sequence that... He trails off, staring at the equations on the board as if they've personally betrayed him. That shouldn't be possible without advanced engineering. The rain drums against the windshield of Reyes's car as she pulls up to the field at midnight. The storm has washed away any trace of the town's normalcy. Now, the place feels like a graveyard. The headlights cut through the downpour, illuminating the spot where James Carter vanished decades ago. She steps out, the mud sucking at her boots. The tape recorder weighs heavy in her pocket. She's played James's message 100 times, but tonight, she swears she hears something new in the static. A whisper that wasn't there before. "You're running out of time." The beam of her flashlight trembles as she sweeps it across the field. Then, a figure, standing exactly where James disappeared. Reyes's breath catches. The silhouette is wrong, too tall, too still, its edges blurred like a smudged photograph. It doesn't move, doesn't speak, just watches. Her radio crackles to life. Jenkins' voice, frantic. "Reyes, get out of there. The files we just found..." The transmission cuts off in a burst of static. When she looks back, the figure is closer, not walking, teleporting. One moment, it's 20 feet away, the next, 10, then 5. Reyes fumbles for her gun, but her fingers won't obey. The air hums with a frequency that makes her teeth ache. The thing tilts its head, a grotesque mechanical motion, and she realizes with dawning horror that it's not just looking at her, it's recognizing her. Then the flashlight dies. In the darkness, a hand closes around her wrist, and the last thing she hears before the silence swallows her whole is James Carter's voice, not from the recorder, but right beside her ear. "You should have stopped digging." The rain isn't falling so much as suspended in midair when Reyes arrives at the field. Each droplet hangs like a fractured prism in her headlights, creating a surreal mosaic of refracted light. The car radio died 5 minutes ago, replaced by an oscillating hum that matches the frequency now vibrating in her fillings. She steps into the storm, but her boots never touch mud. The ground has changed. The grass blades stand rigid as glass, frozen at perfect 90-degree angles. Her flashlight beam fractures when she turns it on, splitting into 7 distinct colors that illuminate things that shouldn't be there. When the figure appears, reality distorts around it. Reyes's service pistol dissolves into rust flakes in her holster. Her police badge grows teeth marks that weren't there seconds before. The thing observing her isn't just tall, its proportions shift constantly, cycling through humanoid shapes like a television scanning channels. Jenkins' voice over the radio doesn't just cut out, it rewinds, playing his warning backward before the speaker erupts in black oil. The substance forms symbols on the dashboard, the same spirals from the evidence room. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.